I moved back to Memphis, I'd say probably about 13 or 14 years ago. Always wanted to kind of get back to my hometown and help contribute. I wasn't sure what Memphis had to offer being gone for a number of years, and came across my now business partner, Eric Matthews, who was focused on technology startups. And so we came together and started talking over a period of time of how we could work together. And that's where StartCo kind of came about.
As we get started, I would love for you, Andre, just to tell us a little bit about yourself and StartCo and the work that you're doing in the city of Memphis.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me today. A little bit about me, born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee. Went to school at Iona College up in Westchester, New York. Had a background in financial services. Started with Guardian Life Insurance before moving to Fisher Investments out on the West Coast and the Bay Area. And I moved back to Memphis, I'd say probably about 13 or 14 years ago. Have always been very civically involved. I come from a very public and civic service family. And so always wanted to kind of get back to my hometown and help contribute. And I say it was around 2009 when I sat on a Metropolitan Charter Commission to try to consolidate our city and county governments, where entrepreneurship kept coming up as a solution that Memphis needs to focus more on. And at the time, I was exploring Memphis because I wasn't sure what Memphis had to offer being gone for a number of years, and came across my now business partner, Eric Matthews, who was focused on technology startups. And so we came together and started talking over a period of time of how we could work together. And that's where StartCo kind of came about. We've gone through a few iterations of our organization over the past decade or so, but originally set out on a mission to turn Memphis into a venture city through technology startups and focusing on building that ecosystem with other great partners here in the Memphis area, but have since expanded that. We noticed that we needed to meet our entrepreneurs more where they're at in the community. And so we're not just focused on tech startups, we're focused on civic enterprises and launching social solutions in the community. We work with a variety of universities and government partners to help do those such things. And we've also taken on more of a revenue generating arm in terms of working with corporations who are looking to launch emerging technologies and also side up next to startups. And so overall, StartCo has become a venture architect firm that's working with various clients and partners. We like to build things. And so we help people build things through finding investment and getting in and digging in the trenches with them.
I think you're a perfect story of, talent in the heartland and things that we can do and accelerate and move on. And StartCo is doing just that. It's exciting to hear. You are known now driving sort of the global economy in the city of Memphis. And I think sometimes people find that interesting of saying, how is the city of Memphis participating in the global economy? How did you get that started? Why is that now a priority for StartCo? Can you just talk a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, a lot of people don't understand the Memphis story, or maybe they have an outdated story. And what people need to better understand is, yes, we are a agricultural town at our roots, and this was the crossroads of all types of agricultural products because of the river and also the railway system that was connecting out west. But over time, we have become a supply chain hub and a logistics capital to the country, based on the movement of three things coming through here. So yes, there's the agricultural products, but also there's the consumer goods, because you look at FedEx, who's headquartered here in Memphis, they employ about 40,000 people that are here. But then also you look at those who are taking advantage of the supply chain, medical device companies. So these are distributed goods. And so when you look at our warehousing infrastructure, when you look at our runways, when you look at our rivers, roads, runways, and rail system that's here, it's really, really advanced. And it's really impacting the global economy because many of the companies that are here, not just FedEx, but then you have like a Service Master that's based here, an International Paper that's based here, an AutoZone that's based here. Even moving into the medical side, when you have a St. Jude Children's Research Hospital that's here, many of which are doing very, very innovative things, leveraging the supply chain in their own right. And we think that it's a good test bed for entrepreneurial activity. We can say that when you see the intersection of supply chain and logistics and transportation with medical device, home services, and then you insert technology advancements, we're a leader in the country. And so we think that unique mix is a good setting of the stage for more resources to pour into this community. And so what we spend a lot of our time doing is recruiting companies to come here to take advantage of our introductions to these resources, these companies, and this domain expertise that these companies offer to match the solution expertise with many of the startups that we work with. Now, just recruiting companies is not good enough. You have to recruit capital. You have to work with governments. You have to change policy. You have to look at new forms of incentives. You have to get creative of other economic development efforts and how you factor into them. There's a lot of bargaining that's going on. There's a lot of social currency that you have to build and spend. And so we've noticed that this usually takes, it's a journey. It's a 20-year journey, we always call it. And we spend a lot of our time kind of swirling around there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think almost every single segment that we've had, talking to different leaders in the entrepreneurship space, the one word that keeps coming up is relationships. And to your point, you have to have them, and it takes time, and you have to be a little bit patient. But when that trust in the relationship really builds, you can do really great things. So much has changed over the past year, obviously, in our personal lives and in our work lives. Supply chain, we learned, is one of the most important things, as it relates to medical equipment and things we've faced during the pandemic. But I'm curious a little bit, sort of, for lessons learned for people that are working in your space, or just, professionals in general. Is there anything that was challenging as it related to, you had to change what you were doing as you were working with entrepreneurs or investors during this time? Or will any of those practices stick, that you were like, we should have been doing this all along? And I'm curious if that's, some of your internal practices, relationships with others, and even some of those policy changes that you think were, promoted during COVID and should stay in place post COVID.
Well, we hope some of this will stick. I think for us, like many, it kind of hit us with a shock because when COVID hit, we noticed that the recruitment of companies to Memphis to co-work and work in the urban core was not going to happen. And that's kind of what our main philosophy is. We hadn't been as much of a virtual type of outfit for years. And so now that we were forced to make that change because we were sitting on a lot of square footage, but it was empty, it's still closed today. And we had to think about not just virtual programming, but also the different customer sets that we wanted to help. So we made a bit of a shift. Yes, we continue to support our portfolio of companies. However, because of the times that we were in, we didn't want to see a lot of other businesses fail that were more small businesses, food and beverage, hospitality. So we took a lot of our lean methods and business principles and went and worked in the community, in the trenches, to help many of them move forward. And it really also introduced us to kind of the big gap that sits here in terms of a technical talent, for many of our business owners. In general, though, coming back to more startups, we did do some virtual programming, and it worked. It worked very well, actually. It really has us thinking about doing more of that going forward, being able to interface with others across the country, and almost having more of a blend. Not just having things that are local based, but opening up to the rest of the country and having more periodic engagements versus just only running accelerator programs or things of that nature. And so we were able to cultivate some really rich dialogue, some really good content in terms of the webinars, and we saw really high attendance through many of those things. The other thing we were able to take advantage of was stimulus dollars that were coming through. We didn't want people to just be thinking about getting back to where we were from an economic standpoint. We understand that the economy is moving, and you have to think more forward to where the economy is going to be. So we were able to take advantage of some stimulus dollars to not just support the community, but to think about how to support startups and move things forward. Now you're seeing that switch into the Biden agenda that's out there. And so there's stimulus dollars, and then his agenda, which is very forward thinking from an R&D and innovation standpoint, and also from an infrastructure standpoint. That combined with stimulus dollars, we think is very, very friendly for building innovation ecosystems and moving forward. And we're hoping to continue to leverage a lot of those dollars in many of the focus areas that he's in.
You talked a little bit about, some people might have traditionally said StartCo, you're focused on, building ecosystems around technology, startups, but you really truly are doing a lot more, and specifically kind of in that social impact stage. Can you share a little bit, maybe some examples of how you've expanded and what that looks like for this year?
Yeah, let me give just a quick, if you don't mind, just a quick backdrop to what we are doing right now, and then I'll segue into how that applies to the civic landscape and the efforts that we're doing there. StartCo, as I mentioned, started with tech startups, a traditional accelerator program over 10 years ago, but has since expanded that to now we're doing more venture development. We're really getting in and building new technologies and building new solutions and providing assistance and capital along the way, where we're interfacing more with corporate innovation arms, and how we tie that into venture investing and to help see things grow. The next iteration was an opportunity around a real estate development here in Memphis called the Walk On Union. So it's a 30-acre, $1 billion real estate investment in an opportunity zone. And we were very lucky to have the ownership group be very interested in centering this mixed use development around innovation and entrepreneurship, meaning allocating some of their capital, which is normally going to go to brick and mortar, to creating a more entrepreneurial ecosystem. This led us down a path of making a recommendation to them to build a smart and connected city. What we didn't want to do is build up such a massive investment and not think about the connected communities around it. And so when you go right across the street in Memphis from this development in downtown, there's an area called South City. 38126 zip code, one of the more distressed zip codes here in the Memphis region. And some work we did about 6 or 7 years ago around writing out a thesis around what Memphis could do to help better close the digital divide kind of came more to life during the pandemic, obviously, because so many people were virtual. And so we put together a digital advancement strategy with a variety of partners here in the Memphis community, from the Women's Foundation to Code Crew to Knowledge Quest to even the case managers at Urban Strategies, and of course the University of Memphis, to help them get connected to the internet, build out technology labs, create better home environments, provide coding and digital skills, and build a continuum going into higher education that could also be a bridge into the startup and venture space. So we spent a lot of time doing the R&D on what that could look like, aligning the partners and rallying resources to support it. So that's an area that we've been very, very passionate about. We've also been spending a lot of time working on around Black business and people of color, because there's a great disparity in terms of participation in sales receipts. So again, we did the R&D behind what could we do as a community that could be different from a policy standpoint, thought leadership standpoint, interventions that are new and programs to support it. And we created the 800 initiative, where we're working with FedEx and Epicenter, Christian Brothers University, and the city of Memphis, which is focused on the disparities. 70,000 local firms, 40,000 are African American, but only 800 have paid employees, doing less than 1 billion out of 36.5 billion in sales receipts. There's a major drop off there. So even though we have good entrepreneurial activity for people of color around small business, in terms of getting them to grow, generate revenue, and grow their bases, is something we've been focused on through a variety of programs, loan funds, connectivity to internships, research, and a wide variety of other resources.
Well, this has been a great conversation, and it's hard to believe we're sort of at the end. I'm going to close out with kind of a few rapid fire questions. I think one or two answers, or brief answers. So the first one I'm going to ask is, what is a company or innovation from the heartland that you are excited about?
From the heartland, well, I mean, can they be local? I mean, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, yes, tell us more.
Well, I mean, I really like, there's a company here called Second Keys, and what they're doing in the preventative maintenance space, of really trying to help better facilitate the relationship between property owners and their tenants, through a maintenance platform, but also trying to gather more data to better solve problems for all of the above.
That's a great example. Question number two. If you could give a mayor or community leader one piece of advice on how they can grow their entrepreneurship ecosystem, what would it be?
I would ask them to heavily emphasize putting innovation and entrepreneurship as a thought leader at the table for traditional economic development, to better leverage incentives and funding structures that typically go to businesses above 20 employees, and take a percentage and put it to businesses less than 20 employees.
And the last question for you is lots of people starting out or people that have great ideas sometimes don't know how to get connected. How would someone that, aspires to be an entrepreneur, not sure that they're yet, how could they get connected with an organization like StartCo or others? What advice would you give them?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of ways, but I would say the best way for a group like ours is through the programs and events and gatherings, because you can have more rich dialogue. We can listen. We can kind of see your passion for what you're involved in and get you pointed in the right direction. And many times in the room are the other resources that you need. So tying into those webinars, tying into those in-person events, once we can start having them again, I think is a good complement to just the traditional hop on our website, send in an email, subscribe, use our toolkit type of thing. Even though we think that's great, sometimes the toolkits and the path that we outline on the website and through can be better matched through the in-person engagement. So getting out of the house and showing up, or hopping online and showing up, would be highly encouraged.
Again, great advice. And thank you so much for your time. Thanks for the work that you're doing, and look forward to having further discussions with you, learning about new and future priorities and how we can share those stories across the heartland. So, Andre, great to see you and look forward to being in touch.
Yeah, thanks for having me today.